guys, so this is actually the first interview and I have asked Mike to join me. So this is a very interesting story that we're really just going to jump into. Mike, so you are a single dad of 2 girls, is that correct?
Yes, I'm fast approaching that. That'll be an official thing within the next month.
Okay, cool.
But I've been essentially a single father since around about March of this time last year.
So Mike comes from a very interesting story that I'm not going to take anything away from because I would really love for him to share. So Mike, you unfortunately went through a pretty rough divorce, is that correct?
Yeah, come to the final stages of it, but yeah, it was certainly painful for me, yes.
So how long were you married, Mike?
21 years.
21 years.
Correct.
So when you kind of come to the end, I've noticed that sometimes you reminisce on the beginnings. So how did you two meet?
Back in the early 90s, I was in the British Armed Forces, and I was with Queen's Detail. I'm a former Royal Marine Commando, Green Beret, British Green Beret. So I was with Queen's Quartermaster on board the Royal York Britannia. I was doing a tour on there, and Amy was on spring break in Nassau in the Bahamas. We met there, danced all night, laughed all night, and when we left, we stayed in touch, started dating, long-distance relationship, and after doing that for about 2 years, we got married in 1996.
So when did the girls come along?
Sophie was born 1999, February 19th. She was not exactly planned, but joyously welcomed. We never did anything to stop being pregnant. You know, if it was going to happen, it happened. It was awesome. And then Olivia came along in June 26th, 2007.
When the girls were there, did you at any point see this, wonderful marriage, as it so was, coming to where it came to be?
No, you don't see this coming. I don't think anyone really sees this coming. Certainly not to the extent it did. I mean, every relationship, every marriage, you have rough times, you have great times, you have bad times, you have happy times. It's always a mixture that's there, so that's part and parcel of any relationship, certainly any marriage. But we always thought the foundation was strong enough to withstand, or at least I always thought the foundation was strong enough to withstand anything like that.
So do you mind sharing with us what is it that happened?
Not at all. I won't go into graphic detail, but I'll keep it sort of simple. So for a period of time there was a strain upon our marriage. I didn't realise at the time, but I had kind of gone into a funk, a semi-depression if you will. Not full on, wasn't eating meds or anything like that. It was just, I was at a low point, and I think that affected Amy as well. And she started being affected and started thinking other things, and it built up slowly. The constant nagging, the constant digging at me, because I wasn't, my potential's up here. She saw the potential, and I wasn't fulfilling it.
No.
And that was on me. I'm certainly guilty of that, I can't say that. And it just came to a head early 2017, where I couldn't take it anymore. I said, that's it, we're separated. I said it one day, and I said it out of anger, frustration, because I didn't know what else to say, right? Within 24 hours, she had contacted the lawyer and basically told me that she said we should start dating and seeing other people. 72 hours after that, pretty much, she had slept with her first man. After that, she, as she said, went dating. And there was a lot of dates. And during that time, I was pretty much fighting every way I could to have her see me the man that I was. And who I was and why she was with me in the first place, why we'd been married for 21 years. And it failed.
So you were saying how you were in a almost depressing or depressed mindset. How did this affect what you were currently in?
I was in this kind of no man's land, not knowing exactly which way to go. I know I wanted to act, I know I wanted to go down that path, I was pursuing that. But I was so focused on that I was sometimes missing the effects it was having on the other people, and that it does directly affect, like Amy. What I should have done is turn around and say, well, I know that's my goal, that's what I want to do, but I've also got to deal with the practical realities of life. What I should have done is stepped up, okay, I better get some sort of work going instead of just working and hoping. Right? Doing those things that I thought would help one side at the expense of others was my mistake. And I am 110% guilty of that. I have to put my hand on my heart and say that was my mistake.
So, I guess we understand what you're guilty of, but one of the questions that, I'm asking myself, and maybe you're asking, that others are asking, is that doesn't necessarily explain also, within 72 hours.
Yeah.
Your wife, because at the time she was still your wife, was already with another man. What?
One night stand.
One night stand. So what do you feel was her disconnect?
We may not ever know the answer truly. Was there some sort of midlife crisis? Was there some sort of mental break? Was there just she was so tired of the way it was that she rebelled and lashed out, and this was her way of lashing? You don't know.
Right.
My only defense is there was no crime that I committed that deserved that punishment. Right? I think any reasonable person would think the same thing. And I will hasten where I am now. I have no anger or hatred towards Amy. I don't. I played my part in what happened. I have to hold my hand up to that.
So, Mike, we have the girls at this point. How were the girls shielded? Were they shielded at all? Did they know what mom was doing? Did they know what was happening?
Like I said, the graphic detail, no. I shielded them from that. They didn't need to know.
Right.
There was no pain involved there. And what happened with Sophie and what happened with Olivia were two different. It affected them differently, and I had to adjust accordingly. So, at one stage, both my children blamed themselves for what was happening. So I had to deal with that at the time, reassure them, tell them that what was happening was nothing to do and they did nothing wrong. And I think that was the beginning of the end for me.
Right.
I wasn't going to stop, I wasn't going to keep fighting for it, right? And that's when I told them, I'm going to back off, I'm going to let you figure whatever you're going to figure off, and I'm going to focus on myself and what I've got to do.
So up until this point, you were fighting, or you were attempting to fight for your marriage.
Yeah, the day I realised I knew I was no longer in love with Amy, I remember well, June 15th. She invited me and the kids over for ham carbonara. By this stage she had moved out, she had her own apartment. I was still living in the original house with the kids mostly. She invited us over for ham carbonara, Olivia's favourite, so I thought that was nice. So I drive home, pick up the kids, I call her, say we're on our way. No answer, expected that. Text her, say we're on our way. No reply, expected that. We get to her apartment, Sophie had a key, walk in, she's not there, I expected that. And she turns up 20 minutes later, 25 minutes later, and she makes ham carbonara, and I know what's happened. But I don't say anything, obviously, to the kids or whatever. So after the meal, I go to the bathroom to relieve myself, and as I'm relieving myself, I look down into the waste paper basket. And right there in the waste paper basket is a used condom. Freshly used, but still fresh. So I knew what she'd done.
Right.
Three things struck me. First thing, no pain. Pain wasn't there. I was looking at it, and if it had been a month earlier, if it had been a week earlier, it would have been like a dagger in the heart. No pain. So that led to a second realization. If there's no pain, it means you can't hurt me anymore. You only hurt the ones that you're in love with. Really, at that level. So I'm not in love. It's gone. Which led to the third realization. She's not worth it. Not worth fighting for anymore. And the moment those three things hit me, it was almost like a strange sense of peace. Probably the first peace I'd felt in months. And it was a calm and peace. Didn't feel sick in my stomach anymore. Didn't feel like someone was slowly pulling at my heart. And there was almost like a clarity suddenly come to me. I felt like a burden had gone, you know, the cliche burdens off your shoulder.
Right.
Right? That is what happened when I was walking down to the car. You know, my back was straight, my vision was clear, and I knew what I was going to do. I knew who I was again.
So, Mike, you've given us a lot.
Yeah.
So, last two things. What would you give as an advice for someone who is currently married?
Mm-hmm.
And what would you give as an advice to someone who might be going through or has gone through what you've been through?
Okay, currently married. It's going to sound cliche, but communication. And I'm not just talking about talking to each other, I'm talking communicating to one another, as in communicating how you both see. The biggest problem I think Amy and I had was the fact when we communicated, we heard what we wanted to hear. And that was the problem. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's listening that's more important. And I'd say when it comes to communication, listening to what your partner is saying and understanding where they're coming from, and vice versa. Be open. Now, just because one person's saying something doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what they mean. You've got to listen to what's actually going on and be responsive to that. So if you're married, because it's easy, especially after a long period of time, to get comfortable with each other. And when you get comfortable, you start switching off from the things that you paid attention to before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key. The communication is still being able to listen to one another and listen to what they're actually saying, not what you think they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's going through it, it is not dark, it is not dire. The pain will pass. It's a process. It can take you 2 years, it can take you 2 months, but hold on to the things that are absolutely important, because they will pull you through. The things that pulled me through, right, my kids, my mum and my dad, my friends, they were all supportive, they were all there for me, and they gave me the correct perspective, and they stopped me from eating myself. They kept me focused on the things that were important and what mattered. If you have kids, they matter far more than yourself and your spouse. Ultimately, that's true. So focus on them, make sure they're all right, because by doing that, you're also focusing on yourself. Right? Understand where it's gone wrong and make a determination. Can it be fixed or can't it be fixed? And if it can be fixed, what needs to happen to get it fixed? And both parties have to be willing for that.
Right.
If one of them isn't, don't pursue it anymore. If one of you or the other person, your spouse, are not willing to work and fix it, cut it. You have to recognise it's worth fighting for, or it's time to let it go. That's what you have to do in that process. And I recognised, I had my moment, and I recognised when it was done.
Right.
And the moment that happened, trust me, the sense of peace and relief that comes it's worth it. Not just for you, but for everyone else involved.
Mike, thank you so much for sharing. I know that it's a lot and it can get really personal, but I appreciate the fact that you're so willing to speak about it.
Anything else for me?
No, you've been a great deal of help, and you can just wave at the people. And we will
Hopefully you'll see me on the big screen one day.
Yes.
His beautiful face.
Alrighty guys, well thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to posting the next interview with another awesome guest. And thank you again, Mike.
My pleasure, and thank you for allowing me to do this.